we'll try and keep this quite light, quite informal. If you want to say something or add a comment, particularly if you're well known in the community, feel free to. So thanks everybody for coming to the OpenFaaS birthday, now 3. So cheers to that. This project started in 2016 in December, and if I've done my maths right, that's 3 years, and it was called FaaS, and it was a rewrite of something that I began in Node.js, because I was doing a lot of Node development at the time. I didn't even know Go properly. And then I rewrote it, had another approach, and eventually over time, it's become what you guys know as OpenFaaS. It's great to actually have hit 20,000 stars. I think it was Alistair got some of his mates together and got them involved, and we went over the number. 5,000 commits just shows how much work goes into a project like this. Just all of the exciting stuff, but all of the normal stuff as well, just day-to-day bug fixes and patches, documentation. Quite a lot of forks, more than I would imagine actually, given we've got 256 contributors. There's actually 2,000 people have forked the project, which I think is an interesting number. And the contributors, I think, will go up even higher, probably into the 300s next year. And this graphic was made by Ihab, who also did the graphic for inlets recently. So thanks to him for this. All right, got some feedback from Jeff Lowry on the audio. So in today's call, I'm going to start off by giving you my 2019 top 5 things. Then we'll get Burton, if he can get here, and he'll tell you about Ketchup, how you can use it, and you can now install OpenFaaS with NPM, which I think is pretty cool. Then Martin will show us new CLI workflow enhancements. I think you'll be interested in this if you're using OpenFaaS regularly, and some of the things we're planning to do after that. Lucas, one of the core contributors, is going to tell us about namespaces, how you can use that and what it's for, the improvements we have for logs. And then Alistair Hay will walk us through OpenFaaS Cloud 0.12, what's in it, and what's coming up next. Okay. So any questions, feel free to put them into the chat, and we'll try and answer them at the end. And my first thing, the biggest thing for me for 2019 was really looking at OpenFaaS and thinking about it in the context of what was already out there, Serverless 1.0, the cloud products. How was it different? Well, really, it was about being able to build whatever code you want, including running legacy code and bash scripts, CLIs. Even somebody's even had a go at running Visual Basic. Now, with that, you can then also run your normal microservices, bring monolithic stuff along, and some of our end users are doing that, and the functions that we're used to, right? Being able to run that anywhere is important for a lot of people, probably some of you that are here today, and that's because we're using Docker. Auto-scaling is also a big part of this, and we added and worked on scale to 0 and back again, and have continued to support that. So Serverless 2.0, like a big theme, and part of that was trying to get people to think past just the name OpenFaaS and just running functions. And I think that worked pretty well. We launched a new website with it as well. And then the reason that we can actually have that portability is because we've got a basic contract. OpenFaaS functions or microservices are Docker images. And any Docker image can run on any orchestrator that can run Docker. We use HTTP port 8080 for incoming traffic, and we assume that it's basically going to be stateless. So we're not trying to manage lots of stuff in memory. Now, we might have a database connection pool, but as soon as the pod dies, that's going to be lost and has to be recreated. But the good news is that without any changes, you can move that to Knative, you can move it to Cloud Run, or you could even come from Cloud Run back on premises or on your own cluster and run with OpenFaaS. So that's a big thing about Serverless 2.0. And this is why we can do it, because we're not using zip files. Now, what goes really well with that is the Plonk stack. And I don't know how many of you have heard of this or looked at the blog post yet. But the Plonk stack is, again, trying to frame Serverless 2.0 and OpenFaaS as something more than just functions. This is something that can make it really easy for you to deploy microservice on Kubernetes in a short period of time, manage secrets, scaling, and have a lot of that just done for you without having to plan it out. There's a great video, it's an introductory video here if you take a screenshot, or you can get these links at the end. Now, the Plonk stack includes Prometheus, which gives us metrics, Linkerd, and if you're not using Linkerd, Linux, because I think pretty much everybody that's running OpenFaaS is using Linux. That's the L. The O is OpenFaaS, and that's where we get our compute from. Compute as in, here's an API. When I tell it what to deploy, it will figure out what to do on Kubernetes. There's also support to use a custom resource in Kubernetes, or you can use both. And that brings us streaming. So there we can accept lots of work and run it in the background on a queue without actually having to build that out ourselves from scratch. It's just really boring boilerplate code. So you get that for free. And then the K, as you probably are expecting, is the Kubernetes. So everything is built to run on Kubernetes. There are some alternative backends for OpenFaaS, but this whole stack is something that an application developer could just pick up, and the idea is they could start writing in Node or Go or Python and have something in production in a short period of time. With that, though, we do have some basic things that are needed, like Docker images, because we're using Kubernetes, and a registry to put them in. And if you look over the doc site, you'll probably see that we spent a lot of time adding new diagrams and re-explaining things that maybe we took for granted originally. But the third thing, and hopefully get a demo of this later, is Ketchup or K3S up. And it isn't just about K3S, but K3S has been important for us this year, launched by Rancher. And it's so lightweight that it can run Kubernetes in 500 megs of RAM. Now, I remember when we were looking at Raspberry Pi 3s and finding ways of getting Kubernetes to run on it because it needed 2 gigs and we only had 1. I mean, this runs on 500 meg out of the box. So whether you're using it on a PC or your Raspberry Pi cluster, it's very lightweight. The agent for that, or the, let's say like the workers, only take 50 megs of RAM, very, very lightweight. And so what K3S can do is you can just point it at a couple of VMs, it will log in over SSH, set up the master, then get the join token and configure everything else for you. If you've used Docker Swarm, it's pretty similar to Docker Swarm init and join. Now, the other thing about Ketchup is that it actually can install OpenFaaS, but not just on K3S. It can install OpenFaaS using Helm 2 or Helm 3 and the standard chart. And the basic process is that we have an app for everything that we're interested in the community. And we run app install. It pulls the Helm chart, unpackages it, puts the templated values in place, and then applies it for us. Now, you could take that YAML and put that into GitHub, and then you could have a GitOps flow with that, or you can just do it for testing. And we never really had a CLI for OpenFaaS. Like, we could never do FaaS CLI install. And when I looked at this problem, I realized we pretty much always needed Cert Manager. We always wanted Nginx. We always wanted a bunch of other stuff. And so rather than just doing FaaS install, we just have one now. And pull requests are welcome to this. Here's an example of how Ketchup can actually get you from having nothing on your computer to full TLS and a certificate, probably in as quick a time as you can type that in. Right, so the first thing adds an ingress controller. We then get Cert Manager that gives us certificates. OpenFaaS does have a few flags. So if you want to use the CRD or you want 10 gateways, you can put flags there. And then the thing that I really like is the OpenFaaS Ingress app just basically generates everything you need. You just put your domain name and email, and then you can log in. So I don't know what people think to this. Perhaps it's something that you could try out in your lab, maybe test it out and see kind of how much quicker it is than doing it all manually. The fourth thing for me was, and this was partially Patricio helped with this, was getting async and await for the node template. And this one's actually moved back into the normal OpenFaaS templates repo, so you don't have to pull anything in extra. And this is an example of how we could get our IP address. So we see that we've got a wait on the get. That then gets us a value back and we can return it. So there's no callbacks. We're not having to deal with promises. And if you want to use this, it's just FaaS CLI new language node 12. The other thing that I like is the Golang middleware template that I put together with Stefan Prodan. And this has seen a lot more use than I was expecting. And I think one of the reasons is this looks more like just a normal microservice than anything else. You get a real HTTP writer, a real request, and you can do literally whatever you'd do in a normal program. This is the same code as the Node.js. It goes to a website, gets the value back, and then gives it to you. So if you want to use that, FaaS CLI template store pool, Golang middleware. Now, do we have Burton or Martin yet?
Yeah, I'm here. Do you hear me?
I hear you. Do we have Burton yet?
Not sure.
Not sure. Okay. And so number 5, top highlight is Linkerd for me, the L in the Plonk stack. And this is obviously completely optional. You don't have to use this, but you might want to, and OpenFaaS Cloud. So I went with Charles Pretzer from Buoyant, and we spoke about how the two projects work together really well to make a secure multi-tenant environment on Kubernetes. And we also spoke about DX. I know Christian's on the call, and one of the things that's been great this year is through OpenFaaS Limited, is working with DX, implementing OpenFaaS Cloud for them, adding new features, and extending the project. The basic way that this works is similar to what you might have heard Stefan talk about, this idea of GitOps, where we effectively have an OpenFaaS on the top right, and we've got some developer on the bottom left. And what we want to happen is when they put code into GitHub, we just want a new function to arrive on the other side. And the GitHub repo will be the source of truth, and there won't be any manual FaaS CLI or kubectl commands. It'll all be automated. And in this sense, we'd push code into our repo, a webhook would get received, build a Docker image, push it in a registry, and then 5 will deploy it, 6 pulls it from the registry, and 7 is we can make use of it. I don't know if you've tried this, but there's a self-hosted version you can get, and there's also a version that that we're hosting in the community, and you can just get free access to that. Now Lester will show you that at the end. We also have a lab. I'd encourage you to go try this out. Matthias Pan put the bulk of this together, and then I've extended it more recently for the SMI spec, which allows us to do traffic splitting without actually changing OpenFaaS. There's some other fun stuff in here too. So I really recommend, if you like technology, you like hacking about, bookmark this, star it, go and do it over the holidays. Have some fun with it. Now, if you just have OpenFaaS on its own and you add Linkerd, the main thing that changes is that there's a sidecar or an extra container put in every pod in your cluster. And that is then used to direct the traffic. And in this example, all of the traffic between my computer and that function is going to be encrypted with TLS. And that means that if somebody was inside the cluster sniffing traffic, they wouldn't get hold of our data. If they were outside of the cluster, they wouldn't get hold of it because of Cert Manager. And so this might be something that's important to you, or you might have just heard of Istio, also something people use with OpenFaaS. That's how that works. The SMI spec is something that Microsoft put together with some other companies. And what this means is when Linkerd is there and there's an SMI spec, we can have 2 versions of one function. And as we invoke it through its main name, Linkerd's proxy will put some weighting. So like half of it will go one way, half of it might go the other way. And this can be really useful for testing stuff out. So 2020 is coming up, and I'm going to be putting together the vision for the next year. I'd like your input. So all of the 32 people on the call and the people that listen to this recording later, do let us know what you want to see in the main project, what you want to see in OpenFaaS Cloud. If there are any other things that you have in mind around commercial products, services, you know, I want to put this together with your input. So please do come and let us know how you want this to look. All right. So now we're going to go over to the community. It's just a few of you on here, a few of those 256 people. And I guess our first person is going to be, or is going to be Burton. We have Burton. Appears we don't. So Martin, are you okay to start?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can share my screen.
Great, yeah.
Just a second. Yeah, so if you can see my screen, do you see it?
Yep.
So I have two slides on the CLI. The first one, the first changes, which are already existing are on the function YAML file. You can have a configuration field now with list of templates, which are custom ones. So you can potentially, when you build function with a custom template, it can be integrated in your build runtime instead of first having to run a couple of commands. Second is the FaaS generic provider name is now deprecated, and it's now called OpenFaaS. We can see in the demo in a few seconds. Changes that are coming soon are the common files folder. The configuration field, which is now used for the templates, can be reused for the common files in case you want to include some files during your building stage of your functions. The build arguments currently can be only specified through the CLI, but you can add it in the YAML file in the future. Those are future changes. The namespaces field, OpenFaaS currently has multiple namespaces support, which means that you can deploy your functions in namespaces, but not yet in the stack YAML file. You can use the CLI as a command. The new commands, you can install kubectl for seal secrets using the CLI. You can vendor the CLI with Node package manager, and you can use the CLI login, which supports OAuth and OIDC, and also the flags for the token and the namespaces are added. So the CLI has full support of the namespaces. So let's go over the demos. I guess I will share my other screen. So I have three screens. I will, yeah. Do you see my three terminals?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So first I will show you how you can install the CLI. You can just, yeah, this is the normal way how you would install a CLI.
This isn't the normal
package
way, is it? This is,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
special. This is a bit different.
Yeah, how you would install a npm package, I meant. So yeah, we have now, you can see the CLI. It's here. Yeah. So,
What do people think of this?
I mean, it's cool. I just want to know why this is as an install way, just so they don't have to go to GitHub and download the release, or?
No, I mean, we have a Bash utility that you can download with, but you can now get the OpenFaaS CLI in even more places.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's nice. Makes it easier.
Yeah, one tool chain. Thanks, Jasdeep. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the npm demo. The demo which installs the kubectl is the it will just fetch the
Can you
kubectl
explain what
binary.
kubectl is?
Well, it helps you create sealed secrets. So this is the client which will help you create sealed secrets.
And what do we use the sealed secrets for? Maybe Alistair, are you there?
Hi, yes. So if you want to commit secrets into your GitHub repository, this does encrypts them, so you can commit them into your GitHub repository. No one will be able to read them, and then they can only get decrypted and read by someone who has the private key, which will be inside your cluster as a secret.
Yeah. So the command, put the command on the terminal again, Martin.
To put what?
The command that you had.
The command that I had.
Yeah, so basically FaaS CLI Cloud Seal would normally need you to manually go off and fetch that executable, which is, you know, it breaks your flow, it's annoying, it might be the wrong version. And so what we've done is just like the npm install, improving your developer productivity. We've done the same thing for this. So as more and more people use OpenFaaS Cloud or sealed secrets on their own, or people just like maybe Stefan that just use sealed secrets with Flux, they can actually get the binary really fast using this.
Okay, should I continue with the demo?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so the template pool stack, you can now list your template. So I have a function, and here are the contents of that function. This configuration field is a new field in the stack YAML file. We can see the provider is now OpenFaaS instead of FaaS, and yeah, you can download those listed templates. Like so, and they will be fetched. I downloaded them already, probably not, no, never mind. So you can list like that your templates, and if you decide to build the current format you would build a function with did not exist, so it was not possible to download a template like that. And you can now, if we run the build, you see that actually the function will succeed. The function build will succeed.
Is there anybody on the call that uses like a custom template or one from the store? Christian?
Yes, I do, but I have a lot of kids around me, so.
Okay. Anyone else? I mean, it does seem like quite a common use case that we see, that people are having custom templates.
Definitely some tweaking some existing ones, and in a couple of cases using like the Docker file template and modifying that a bit. Yeah, it's a nice use case to have, to be able to do that. Yeah, I think I was talking to Christian earlier today about potentially sharing some ideas around a Laravel-based one for moving over legacy code.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. So the other thing is, I don't think, Martin, do you still have to do template stack pull, or the first time will it just try and download it?
No, it will just download it. The stack pull was just the demoing the new command.
And you can put a URL in there as well, can't you?
Yeah, you can.
Do you want to put the file on the screen again?
The file, okay. So
where we've got name, what else can you put in the template?
Now, yeah, so you can define also your custom templates. So if I have a custom name, I can point out a URL value. I forgot to add that, but you can put name, URL, and you can put your custom template URL. So potentially you can build your functions with whatever function you have.
Great.
In that format.
Thanks. And if you miss it, if you miss out the URL, it's just going to come from the store.
Yeah.
Which is great. Can you just show us the last slide of your presentation again, if anyone wants to take a screenshot?
Yeah, just a second. Do you see it?
Yeah.
This is the first, this is the second.
The last one, yeah. So just to mention the login, because I worked on that, we can now log in to OpenFaaS using OIDC or OAuth 2. So don't only have to use basic auth. If you want to use Auth0, GitHub, GitLab, you have an authentication provider, you can do that. I think somebody was using Azure Active Directory. That's a commercial add-on. And then we also have the namespace flag, which is going to be covered in a bit more detail by Lucas. Great. Anybody have any quick questions from Martin about anything that he showed you?
All looks good. Definitely excited about the build args in the stack YAML.
Thanks. Is that Chris from RateHub?
Yep. Hey.
Cool. So Burton doesn't seem to be able to join. He's got something come up at work. Lucas, are you ready to do your demo?
I stopped sharing.
Yes, I lost my Zoom window for a second.
No worries.
I was actually double checking my demo and then came back to it. Yep, so let me share my video real quick then. Share. So many options. I'm going through and I had to reinstall. I need to quit and come back, apparently.
Okay, we'll see in a second. So like for OpenFaaS contributors and the members, do feel free to just comment on things, extra details that you're seeing in the demos. And so what we're going to see when Lucas comes back is namespaces and logs. What I could probably show you while we wait is what Burton was going to be doing. So what I have here is DigitalOcean virtual machine. And if I go to ketchup.dev and I run bash with this, I'm going to get this downloaded. Who's used this tool before? Give me one or two people. Yeah. So remember, it can create Kubernetes clusters, but the other thing that it can do is install apps. And these apps are really just Helm charts. And what we've done is wrap them up in a few strongly typed Golang flags. And these, I hope you will agree, are a lot easier to bear with than .set gateway .replicas and get everything exactly right. We also have known configurations here. So if you want to use Helm 3 to install that, that's fine. If you want a load balancer. The other thing that we can now do is we can install K3S using this local flag. So rather than actually connecting to a remote machine over SSH, I can just install it directly on this computer by running that command. After that, I can install the apps that I want. So that's it. I now have Kubernetes on this computer. It's pretty quick.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. And then the other way that you can run this is, because I know the IP of this machine is the following from my own computer, and this is the original idea, is I can do ketchup app install, install, put the IP user root, and this is going to run through the installation again. And at the end, it brings a kube config down to my computer. So I never actually have to physically log into the machine that I created. And we can now see from here, when I look at the nodes, I'm on my Mac at home, and I've got this kubectx to show me that I'm pointing at that machine. Now, I can install OpenFaaS. Let's say we want 2 gateways, and we want to use Helm 3 to install it. I'm on a slightly older version of this. I could just update it, and then I can get the gateways. We'll do that later. So we'll just do the Helm 3. Hit enter. It's now downloaded Helm for me in a special directory, so I don't even have to worry about finding the right version for my OS. it runs all of the commands, does the install, and at the end, it tells me exactly what I need to do to start using that. So I do a port forward to the gateway, I do the login, and I can deploy Figlet all within probably 2 minutes, the entire thing. The other apps that we've got are listed here. And so what Burton was going to show you was installing Minio. Minio is really useful for object storage. And so again, it comes with commands to get you started. It will get the secret key and access key for you, so we're not using anything hard-coded. It will then add the URL for you, and you can just start using it. One that I added, I think it was maybe just early this week or last week, was Postgres. And this has helped me a lot with some of the work that I've been doing for a client. And again, it gives you the commands that you need to run at the end. All of this is using proper Helm charts. Everything is exactly where you'd expect it to be. We can even install the metrics server. I don't know if anyone's struggled to get this on their computer before, but literally tends to be that is all that you need to do. There's some other stuff on here as well. So if there's something missing that you'd like to see that you think is going to be useful, recently we added the Kafka connector and the cron connector. So if you want to connect functions to these event sources, you can do that too. All right. What do people think of Ketchup?
This is really awesome.
Alex, I can mention that we're actually using that to boot up on-prem clusters to make the move to the cloud easier.
Great.
That's one. The other question you got on the chat was how you compare this to Kind.
Yeah. So the difference between, so Ketchup installs K3S, but it also installs apps to whatever you want, EKS, or even you can install to Kind. But K3S is a proper compliant Kubernetes distribution designed for production use that also happens to be really easy to use at home. And there are other tools you can use with it too. Whereas Kind is really just focused on that Kubernetes use case. If you are developing Kubernetes itself, then the best thing for you to use is Kind. If you're developing applications locally, you might enjoy using K3S.
Okay.
And it also works on Raspberry Pi. Great. So Lucas, I filled in for Burton. So if you can do your section now, that'd be great.
Sure. Let's see if my Mac wants to play nice now. And it should be working, hopefully.
Yeah, I can see it. Excellent.
Sorry about that. I reinstalled everything. So of course now it's asking permission every time I try to do even a little thing. So what I wanted to actually start with is these slides. And the first thing is multiple namespace support. If you use Kubernetes directly, then you've probably heard the concept of a namespace. And the idea is that we can create multiple environments, we could support multiple teams, and in doing that, you could enforce different constraints, like resource constraints on the entire namespace, for example. And when we started deploying OpenFaaS for Kubernetes, you have a namespace for your core system, typically, and then usually one separate namespace for where all your functions go. But if you're like many people will have an organization or a setup where you have a dev environment and then a prod environment. But if all your functions go in the same spot, you can't really replicate this. But now with multiple namespaces, you could. And so far, this is still a work in progress, but we have integration in the gateway UI, the CLI, of course, the gateway API, and FastNetties itself is obviously the most important piece there. And soon we will add it to the operator. OpenFaaS Cloud is working to support this as well. And of course, logs, which I will talk about in a little bit more detail after this. But what I'd like to go to next is just if you are interested in multiple namespace support, if you have multiple teams or this multi-stage deployment process, I mean, there could be various reasons you want to do this. Then check out the ticket 511. You can see already, I mean, this is maybe a third of the work that's been done so far. And if you find something that's missing or that you think is relevant or that you want to contribute, just add a comment here. And with that, I want to briefly show you what multiple namespace support would actually look like on a day-to-day basis. So briefly on the left, of course, we have some introductory docs. So if you go to docs, go to reference and namespace, you'll find some information there, which will look very similar to this. In my particular cluster, I couldn't use default. So I needed to set up where my default components would go. And then of course, if you want multiple namespaces for your functions, you need to set up multiple namespaces, in this case, OpenFaaS function. And then I have my Lucas Sandbox dev functions. So I'm kind of thinking about this as dev function is for my dev deployment, Sandbox, and then OpenFaaS func is for the prod deployment. And then the last setup step is adding this annotation. So if you're using Kubernetes, you kubectl annotate OpenFaaS equals true. And this is needed so that OpenFaaS can detect which namespaces it should be allowed to play with and add things to, and the namespaces it shouldn't be allowed to add things to. And then in my environment, I'm an old man. I still use the not so cool Ketchup install, but you then would of course need to install your OpenFaaS, which now this is one line instead of all of this. And what I want to start off with is showing what this would look like if you jump into the gateway UI, because this is where, hey, is everything working? First step, open the UI. And if you're using multiple namespaces, you'll immediately see those two namespaces I annotated at the beginning. Let's see if I can zoom this a little bit.
We can see it really good. It's fine.
Okay. Those are exactly the two namespaces I annotated and no others. Like this cluster has probably 7 other namespaces installed on it, and you can only see those. In this case, I've installed leftpad in one namespace, and then I've added node info and NSLOOKUP really quickly. So you can see really fast that support in the UI, and also quickly in the CLI what something like this look like. So we have fast CLI, and let me copy this over.
This is setting his gateway now.
So I have my OpenFaaS URL, setting it as a environment variable, so I don't have to keep adding it as a flag. And if I list, you can just get the default behavior you already have. So I've installed with the default environment, and those are the two that we saw down here, node info and NSLOOKUP. But of course, as was mentioned just a moment ago, we now have this namespace flag, which can also be the short N, and we see that one function. And if we wanted, we could try and deploy another function real quick. Cows are always fun. Where's the cows function? ASCII cows. So fastCLI store deploy ASCII cows, and let's deploy this to dev. Like this. Here's the short N. 202 accepted, and now we have this URL. Oops. Let's do.
Can you click on it?
Well, if I click on it, oh yeah, there we go. Now we got cows, and of course we can go back and.
Can you look in the kubectl namespaces?
Sure. So kubectl get namespaces. So you can see we have several namespaces floating around in here that are being safely ignored. And if I look inside of that, you see exactly the functions that we saw before.
Pierre is asking, what's the leftpad about? It is actually leftpad. I think we built it. I built it myself in the early days when there was that fiasco. People are also really interested in the dark theme. It looks like a browser plugin or something.
Yes, that that is just my what is it, Dark Reader plugin.
Alistair, do you think we can do that somehow for the UI? Do you think we can make our UI look like this?
Definitely.
At work, we added a dark theme to one of our apps by taking Dark Reader and then just stealing all the CSS that it generated real quickly. I mean, obviously they then went through and tweaked it, but it was like, someone was like, I'm really bored, quick win. And yeah, so it's not too hard.
That's awesome.
Let's make that happen.
So who could use this with their OpenFaaS deployment? Is there anybody here who's interested in using this?
Oh, yes.
In my own environment, the way I envision using it is actually when we do our deployments, we do it based on branches and then tags. Yeah. And then so when we see a tag, we can deploy it directly to stage. And if we see a branch merge in the master, deploy it directly to dev. And this is something that's really easy to just add to the CLI with this little flag. We know exactly what those names are. It's super simple.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it in the operator. I think Stefan's on the call. He's got some ideas about how we'll do that. So you've got 4 minutes or three minutes and a bit if you want to show you the next bit.
So the other thing that happened this year that I've spent some time working on is the logs. And really the core situation or use case for this is live debugging of your functions, and then simply bringing a simplified and consistent experience to OpenFaaS. No longer do you have to be like, how do I get my logs? Well, it depends. Did I install a Swarm, to Kubernetes, to something else? And this is greatly simplified learning about OpenFaaS because the workshop has exactly one workflow: install using your tool, and then deploy, get logs, and so forth. And of course, this is covered in the CLI, and we've seen it in Fastnetties, we've seen it in Swarm. You can use it in OpenFaaS Cloud already. And just a quick look at what something like this would look like. Or I guess I can just do it over here. So
yeah.
Fast, CLI, logs, node info. This will come back with, well, nothing is happening right now.
So it's attaching to the logs, isn't it?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
But if I come over here and zoom back out and invoke, there we saw that line pop in.
It's taking a
time. Not sure what's going on. So
live demos. There we go.
Yeah, and so now it's going fast. I think it must have been
Zoom, isn't it? Zoom's taking all your battery.
Yeah, but there we go. We have logs, and all this is simple, consistent, and this would work on Swarm or any of the OpenFaaS environments that you're currently working with.
Is anyone seeing this for the first time? I've been using this. I've been doing some work with OpenFaaS recently, a bit with Kai and some other people, and it's been great. Type a lot less in. It's just there. It just works. Yeah, cool. Thanks.
To wrap up, the next steps. Right now, the logs are just inside of the current providers, but it's meant to be extensible. So there is an interface. You can create external providers. I've done so with Loki, if you're familiar with the cloud native environment. But I think a big win would be Elasticsearch. So here's this could be you location. And just a quick shout out and thanks to everyone that has done a lot of the work, especially on Namespaces, which has been a huge task, and I'm sure I've missed some people.
Thank you for the logs. I know you had like the lion's share of that. It's really useful. Just like logs, secrets, namespaces are all things we're doing to try and unify that experience across the board. Great. Okay, so Alistair, you've got some time now to show us OpenFaaS Cloud 012.
Yep. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. I will share my screen. Here we are. So I started contributing a few months ago, and my main focus has been OpenFaaS Cloud. I've had fiddled around with other bits and pieces, but this is where I've focused mainly. And going to have a look at some of the things that have gone in to 0.12, the 0.12 release, and I'll do a little bit of a sort of an overview of OpenFaaS Cloud for people that haven't used it before. So I'll probably start with that if people think it'll be useful to have a quick go through.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I have OpenFaaS Cloud installed here, which was installed through the OFC Bootstrap tool that's part of OpenFaaS Incubator. And basically it's a OpenFaaS install with extra bits added on top and a UI, and it's all driven through GitOps. So I have some functions deployed here from a repository, which may or may not go through, it does. And any changes in this repository will trigger a build, which apparently failed the last time I did it. This is my dev cluster. And it will build the functions from the stack YAML file, push them up to, in my case, Docker Hub. There's also AWS ECR integration. So you can push your images privately up to there, or you can use a self-hosted repository as well. And then, too many things. And then it will deploy the functions into an OpenFaaS install, and it gives you this dashboard here. And you get basic information about the deployments. You get the endpoint, you get information about the image, you get the build logs through the UI that the automated CI/CD did through the Git flow. And
can you show us the new bit that you added?
Yeah, can't remember where I was on my thing. Okay. Yeah, and we've also got runtime logs. So I've got a function deployed over here, which takes ages because it's written in a Python, which gets an image of a cat from a API somewhere. Lovely. And it uses OpenFaaS Cloud, and we can look at the runtime log. So I've added some contrived example in here of sort of log messages that we could put within the function, and users can invoke that function. And if we're quick enough, we should see it forking the process, and then the logs coming in there at the end. So people can now get the same logs they could get through the CLI if they're using OpenFaaS Cloud directly in the cloud dashboard here. So that's like a brief overview. Some of the other bits and pieces we've done is we've added a introduction dashboard for users that don't have any functions deployed, and these links take you off to the OpenFaaS docs, so people can learn more about OpenFaaS in general, and then into the workshops as well to get hands-on. We've added OAuth lockdown to the dashboard, so now users can only access dashboards which they have the correct claims to visit. If they try and visit someone else's dashboard, see what Alex has got installed.
And you could, but what you can do is, right, because you're in the OpenFaaS organization now as a GitHub member, you can.
Yep. So I can visit the OpenFaaS dashboard here.
And you can filter as well on the owner, right?
So so no matter what dashboard you're in, you'll get functions from your repositories and also any team repositories you're in. But if you want to filter just down to yours or a specific repository, you can filter down here like this, or go back to those. So we had the runtime logs, I've showed you those, and we have seen the functions for things. Oh, and also we've added something. So if you go to the root domain of the installation, you get, if you're using the OAuth installation, you get redirected now through to your personal dashboard with your claim. So if you go to anywhere in the URL, you get redirected back to where you were used to get an error page. So that should help people with pointing directly at the cluster installation and finding their way to the dashboard. Should make things easier. Is there anything else people want to see? I think that's what I've gone through. Oh, we've added build branch support. So you can now choose a branch that's not master when you do an installation,
There's
and
a docs page that you could show maybe.
Yeah. Is this one?
Yeah. So if you go to multi-stage.
Yeah. Yes, here we are. So you can use the sealed secrets commands that we saw earlier to encrypt your secrets, and then you can commit those into your Git repository. And if you wanted to have a staging installation and a production installation, using the same code but different sets of secrets, you can manage that now by only having your secrets, your private key for your production build inside your production cluster and your staging build inside your staging cluster. So there's no way you can get those things confused. You can import, you can sort of inject your secrets into a specific cluster so that your sort of staging and production clusters can use the same set of code and work in the same way.
Yeah, and this is inspired by the way that the company Stefan works for, Weaveworks, the way they do this with Flux is, or some of their users do it this way, is separate repos for the secrets and one code repo. The other thing that that we've done is a lot of work on the bootstrap code. So if you remember back last year, probably sometime last year, you had manual instructions for OpenFaaS Cloud. Now, we can set everything up in about 100 seconds, but there's also a shortcut. So if you're running on K3S or on your laptop, we can do it even quicker than that by turning off OAuth, turning off TLS. You scroll down a little bit further, you see those are the things that we install on that diagram. And so if we turn those bits off, you can get this so quick, you won't believe it. And there's also a web page that can generate your GitHub app and give you your secrets back. So expect to see a bit more on this next year.
Yeah.
These thoughts on using having different settings for different environments that aren't secrets, like sort of environment variable type stuff?
You would put them in through the same mechanism. There's no disadvantage to using the secret.
Okay.
If you are building your own pipeline outside of OpenFaaS Cloud, then obviously you can maybe have two different stack YAML files, one for each, or two different environmental variable files. Those are other options.
So I think some things we're looking at for next year will be build time secrets. So pulling from private NPM repositories is one thing that people have been interested in. Potentially adding branch preview support. So if you commit to or create a pull request, we could temporarily spin those up. I think that's just an idea at the moment. And the multiple namespace, so a namespace per user, and then we can apply policies and things onto those.
And if anybody wants to get a deep dive on OpenFaaS Cloud and security there, and just what we did do, look at the OpenFaaS blog, and you'll see the highlights from KubeCon. That's got everything on there, all the videos that we had. So has anybody got any comments, anything they're excited about, like that they've seen today? Anything they want to go away and try?
The UI improvements are awesome.
For the OpenFaaS Cloud?
Yeah. Really awesome.
So we get you trying something out on the community cluster now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to try.
Good. Good. Anybody else? What did we like?
I like the namespace support. I want to try it. Yeah.
That's cool.
I need to write a follow-up blog on GitHub Actions with all the new CLI stuff. We talk about kind of that continuous integration from GitHub and namespaces, for example, but also the template polling just simplifies things so much.
We have a GitHub action for OpenFaaS, right?
Yeah, I have one that I've tried publishing. I keep clicking the publish button. It doesn't work. So I don't know if anyone can find it. But it exists. And the nice thing about GitHub Actions, you just reference a Git repo. So anyone can use it. But it probably needs to be updated to match, like I said, the new CLI with all the nice features.
There's other folks that are excited about contributing. And we've got some others that are excited about the namespaces. There is a There is a video that we did on how to contribute, and it was one of the biggest calls we had. I'll put a link in for anybody that wants it. That's a weird Google link. Let me get the proper link. There you go. So have a look at that, and feel free to ask in the contributors channel. There's some documentation about it too.
Yeah.
Right.
I only started contributing a few months ago. If you want any advice from me, just reach out on the OpenFaaS Slack. Thanks, Alex.
Cool. Yes, thank you so much for everything you've done. If anybody did actually want a mug, right? Nice embroidered hoodie for Christmas or just for the new year, do let me know, or backpack. Likewise, if you want to land a few stickers, you tweet Team Serverless until the end of Friday. Screenshot, try something out, just put something out there. We'll pick the top 5. Might be feeling a bit more generous by that time, maybe the top 10, we'll see, and we'll send you some stuff out. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you for celebrating our 3rd birthday. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Ha det bra.
Pretty excited. Thank you.
So goodbye.